everyone, it's Sarah and welcome to my crochet channel. I'm very excited about today's video because today's video is part 3 of our crochet along, the hooded shawl with pockets. In part 1 we did the shawl portion. In part 2 we stitched up the hood and sewed it on to our shawl. Today's video, in part number 3, we're going to add the trim that goes all the way around the shawl and the hood, and then we're going to stitch up the pockets and sew them on. And then we'll be ready to wear our hooded shawl with pockets. Now you can find all 3 of these videos on my YouTube channel, and you can find the complete pattern with lots of pictures and extra notes on my blog. And as always, you can find that pattern link down in the notes underneath this video. All right, let's do a quick recap of the supplies you need to make the entire hooded shawl with pockets. You can use any medium weight number 4 yarn. I've been using Heat Wave from Red Heart, and I've been using these 4 colors, striping every 4 rows. I did the striping on the shawl, the hood, and I am going to be doing the striping on my pockets as well. You'll notice that I have 2 crochet hooks out today. When we do the trim on our shawl and hood, we're going to still be using that J hook, which is a 6.0 millimeter crochet hook. When we stitch up our pockets, we're going to use our H hook, which is a 5.0 millimeter crochet hook. And the reason we're going down to a smaller hook is we want those stitches on our pockets to be just a little bit closer. Now, if you don't want to do it that way, you can still use your J hook if you want to. If you use the H hook, you're going to end up with a pocket that's about 9 inches wide by about 12 inches tall. Just an FYI. And if you use your J hook, of course it's going to be just a little bit bigger. We're also going to need our scissors and a needle. And with that needle, we're going to sew our pockets on and weave in our ends. We're going to stitch a half double crochet trim, working all the way around the edge of the shawl and the front edge of our hood. Turn your shawl to the wrong side or the back of your work. Here is the front of my hood, and so I'm going to be working on the back side. And we're going to join our yarn, and of course you can choose whatever yarn that you want for your trim. So I've joined my yarn to the corner, and I'm using this pretty royal blue because I think it will make all the stripes stand out nicely. All right, I'm going to stitch across my tail of yarn. And what we're going to do on this top section here till we reach the hood is we're going to evenly half double crochet across. Yarn over, go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through all 3 loops. To evenly work those half double crochets across, it's very important that we do this evenly, of course, and you want to try to stitch in the sides of the stitches and not the holes if you can. Yarn over, we'll go in the side of another stitch and stitch a half double crochet. I've stitched over that tail of yarn a little bit, so I'm just going to let that drop, and of course I'll weave that in later. And now I'm just going to work across, stitching half double crochets evenly. And again, there is no stitch count. You're just going to eyeball it, look at it close, try to get those stitches close together, but not puckered up. You want a nice good coverage. Let me hook back in there. You want a nice even coverage across. So we're stitching evenly half double crochets until we reach the side of our hood. I have half double crocheted across that top till I reach my hood. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to half double crochet in each of those single crochets all the way around the front of the hood. So this is nice. We have stitches we can stitch in. One half double crochet in each of those single crochets around the front of our hood. And we'll do it all the way around till we get to this other side. So I stitched across evenly half double crochets across this side at the top. Then I stitched half double crochets in each of the single crochets around the front of the hood. And now that brings us to this side. And we're going to do exactly what we did over here on this side. We're just going to stitch half double crochets evenly, working across, trying to stitch in the stitches and not the holes. So we're going to stitch half double crochets evenly across. Evenly stitching half double crochets across this other side of the top of our shawl. So I have completed stitching half double crochets evenly across this other side, and that brings us to the end. All right, so what we're going to do, my hook back in there, is we're going to stitch 3 half double crochets in this corner. So there's 1, 2, and 3. And now we can just stitch a half double crochet in each of these stitches, working down the side or the end of our shawl. And so what we're going to do is we'll stitch half double crochets across the side here. We'll stitch 3 half double crochets in the corner, and then we'll evenly stitch half double crochets across the bottom of our shawl all the way across, and that will bring us to this other end. We'll stitch 3 half double crochets in this corner, and then place 1 half double crochet in each of those stitches across, and then that will bring us back where we started. So basically we're stitching evenly half double crochets on the last 3 sides, stitching 3 half double crochets in each of the corners, and ending back over here where we started. I have completed stitching down the other side across the bottom, and now I stitched back up this other side where we started. Here's where we came across to begin with to our hood. So I have evenly half double crocheted all the way around my hood and my shawl, stitching 3 half double crochets in each of the corners. Here's my 3 here. I'm going to join to my first half double crochet with a slip stitch, cut my yarn, go in my next stitch and pull that loop to the back and tie that off. And now I do need to take my needle and weave these ends in. And my shawl and hood are complete. Now, if you don't want pockets on yours, you don't have to do this next step. But I want pockets. And so once I tidy this up, I'm going to show you how to make the pockets and sew them on to your hooded shawl. Let's make the pockets. Now remember, you need 2 pockets, so you're going to need to do this 2 times. We're going to begin with our slip knot, and we're going to chain 25 chains. And again, chain it a little bit loose so your pocket isn't puckered on the end. I've chained my 25 chains, and we're going to begin with a single crochet in the second chain from the hook. And then we'll stitch 1 single crochet in each of our chains across. And don't forget, I'm using my H hook for the pockets. One single crochet in each of the chains across. We began with 25 chains. We stitched a single crochet in the second chain from the hook and in each chain across. So we have 24 single crochets. We're going to chain 3 and turn. Our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet, and so we'll stitch a double crochet in the next stitch and in each stitch across. 1 double crochet in each of the single crochets across. I've stitched that row of double crochet, so I have 24 double crochets, chain 3 and turn. And now I'm going to do 3 more rows of row 2. Chain 3, 1 double crochet in each double crochet across, chain 3 and repeat. So what I'm going to do is stitch 3 more rows of 1 double crochet in each stitch, just like I did in row 2, and that will get me a single crochet row and 4 rows of double crochet in my first color. So we're repeating row 2 for 3 more rows. I completed those 3 additional rows, so I have 4 rows of the double crochet in my first color. Now I'm going to change colors. If you're not changing colors here, then you don't have to do it this way. You can go ahead and chain 3. But since I'm striping mine every 4 rows like I did my shawl, I want to change my color and then do my chain 3. Now, we're going to do 12 more rows of double crochet. I am again going to be changing my colors every 4 rows. So we have 4 here, and I'm going to do 4 in the teal, 4 in the royal blue, and 4 in that seaweed green color. And along with my single crochet here, that will give me up through row 17. All right, so what you're going to do is you're going to repeat row 2, which is 1 double crochet in each double crochet across, chain 3 and turn. You're going to repeat row 2 for 12 more rows, which will bring you up to row 17. I have repeated row 2 for those 12 additional rows, and I changed colors every 4 rows. Now remember, If you're not changing colors, that's totally fine. When you're reading through the pattern, just ignore the color changes or change it as you want to. But you should have a total of 17 rows, 1 single crochet, and 16 double crochet rows. If you're going to change colors here, you can. I am going to, but if you're not, then you don't have to. We're going to be stitching a row of single crochet across the top, across the side, across the bottom, and across this side as well to add a nice trim that we're going to use to sew on to our shawl. All right, so if you're not cutting your yarn, chain 1 and single crochet around. I'm going to cut my yarn because I want to bring in this beautiful teal color for this trim. Now I did my other pocket with the green and I trimmed my shawl with the blue. So I've got some other colors going on. All right, so I'm going to bring in my new color, snug that down, chain 1, and now I'm going to single crochet across the top of my pocket. So what we're going to do is we're going to place a single crochet in each of the stitches going across the top of our pocket. One single crochet in each of these double crochets. I single crocheted in each of the double crochets across the top. We're going to place 2 single crochets in the corner, and now we're going to evenly single crochet across the side. It's similar to the half double crochet that we did on the shawl. We want to try to work in the stitches, not the holes. There we go. Stitching single crochets all the way down to the corner. When we get to the corner, we're going to stitch 2 single crochets in that corner and then stitch across the bottom, 2 single crochets in that last corner, and then up the side of our pocket so that we have a nice even row of single crochets all the way around all 4 sides of our pocket and 2 single crochets in each of those 4 corners. 2 single crochets, single crochet down, 2 single crochets, single crochet across, 2 single crochets in the corner, and then all the way back up to where we started here. So I've completed the trim for my pocket. We single crocheted across, 2 single crochets in the corner, we single crocheted evenly down the side, 2 single crochets in the corner, we single crocheted evenly across the bottom, 2 single crochets in the corner, and then evenly single crocheted up the other side. And I have 2 single crochets in the corner. And let me show you here. There's my second single crochet. I'm going to join to my first single crochet and cut my yarn. But I'm not going to cut it short. I'm going to give myself some extra yarn here. It might not be enough, but enough to get me started. And that's because I'm going to use that to sew this onto my shawl. I have already attached one of my pockets onto my shawl. I just wanted you to see the way that it looked. And I used the seaweed green for the trim on this one. Now I'm going to show you how to sew the other one on the other side. Where I put my pocket is I centered it between the 2 ends, and I wanted it to line up with the second row of the top of the second row of double crochet. And something that might help you is to grab some long pins and pin that in place, because we're going to be, of course, sewing this on. And you want to make sure it gets where you want it to go. We think we can hold it in place, but sometimes it does move on us. That's just how anything is, whether it's fabric or crochet, knitting. Things tend to move a little bit on us, and we want to do the best we can to try to keep it where it needs to go. All right, I'm going to pin the side. Okay, you can take your tape measure and measure to make sure your sides are the same. This is all the same, how things are all lined up. Now I've gone ahead and added my thread to my needle. And of course this is the top, so we're not going to sew that closed. So I'm going to twist this a little bit so we can see how to do this. And we're going to be sewing this on with what's called whip stitches. This is our corner. And when we sew this on, we don't want to go all the way through to the back of our shawl. We want to try to stay in the tops of the stitches. And so what I do is I try to go through a couple of loops and whip stitch that on. Let me bring my camera in closer so you can see what I'm doing. All right, so I'm going to come down to these next couple of loops and go in and stitch that whip stitch. See how I'm going through the tops of the stitches? And then I'm stitching through those loops. Let me show you the back. You can't even see, because right here is where I stitched. You can't even see where I stitched those by doing it this way. If you struggle with that a little bit and it goes through, it's okay. It's just, this is a way to make it just a little bit neater. All right, so we're just going to go through a couple loops of the tops of those stitches and go through our next stitch. We want our pocket to stay put when we put our hand or our wallet or our phone inside, but we don't want those stitches to show in the back. So this is a great stitch. It makes it look kind of cute, I think, as it comes down the side. I like the way that it looks. And so what we're going to do is we're going to continue to do these whip stitches all the way down, across the bottom, and all the way back up to the other side, and that's how we're going to stitch our pocket on. I have stitched my pocket on, working all the way around the three sides. Here's my opening. It's nice and secure, but I also want to show you the back. You cannot see where I stitched it on. When you're making these stitches, make sure that you go through maybe 2 of the loops on the top, and that's going to give you a good secure hold. Then when you get to your last edge, you want to make sure that's attached securely. So put a couple of stitches in there, because that's where it's going to get pulled on, are these corners from your hand or whatever you're putting inside, pulling on those corners. All right, and then I'm just going to weave that down in. So now my hooded shawl with pockets is complete. I can hardly wait to start wearing it.